Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation. It's day 258 of our fight for freedom. And I want to introduce you our next speaker. It's Fedir Venislavskyi, People's Deputy of Ukraine, member of the Parliamentary Committee on the National Security, Defense and Intelligence, representative of the President of Ukraine in the Parliament. Good afternoon, Mr. Fedir. Good afternoon. I would like to start our conversation with the budget adopted for the next year. So how will economy and the small business and other businesses work? What do Ukrainians have to be prepared for? Thank you for the question. First of all, I won't tell you anything new apart from the fact that the budget approved previous week is the budget of the country under conditions of war, and all the budget proceeds, all the budget profits will be spent in the areas of defense and national security. And for me, as the member of Parliamentary Committee of National Security, is very important because at the meeting of the committee, when we approved the items of the security and the defense, we try to take into account the needs of the armed forces to enable their supply with the material and the technical provision of the armed forces and material and social guarantees for the Ukrainian servicemen. And I'm convinced that we will have enough funds for this. However, I would like those figures to be bigger, but going back to your question, unfortunately, we have significant economic losses due to this occupation of the significant part of Ukraine. So naturally, the economic development slowed down significantly. However, we forecast the growth of the GDP by the Ministry of Economy and Ministry of Finance, and another component of the state budget, which is important for us as the country which is under terroristic threat by Russian Federation, is social guarantees. 43% is the sphere of defense, and 17% is the social help, social protection, etc. That's why I'm convinced that the citizens will be protected to the maximum extent possible with the account of the current condition of economy. But to have the economy developing, there is a number of programs being implemented, including presidential initiatives like lowering of the interest for the manufacturers of products and services, so that they can get orders and manufacture their orders. If I extrapolate your question to the sphere of defense and security, so if in the beginning of the war we had to procure military equipment and the protection system from our Western partners, because in fact we didn't have enough personal body armor for us, and the equipment was not enough for the mobilized servicemen. So today at the meeting of our committee, we had the representatives of the light industry who manufacture ballistic helmets and other personal protective equipment. Now, in the synergy of Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Economy, we have to fulfill the orders for the national manufacturer to provide them with a turnover capital that will enable them to fulfill the defense order. So through the prism of war, we have to understand that even for the big businesses and small businesses, we create convenient conditions so that they can provide the armed forces and push the economy forward at the same time. And the Ministry of Finance works on this, and economy works on the stimulation of businesses, developing different stimulation programs. So I think that maybe not as during peacetime, but the government will squeeze the most out of this situation to support small and medium-sized business. The defense and security areas, Lend-Lease, how it will work in the next year, and Ukrainian military-industrial complex, how will it work and how will it be supported? I wouldn't like to talk a lot about the operation of the military and industrial complex of Ukraine, because as soon as something is worded, we get Shaheds sent to that area. So it's a threat of terroristic attacks by the Russian Federation. They don't always manage to do what they want, but still they inflict significant damage. And at the same time, in the sphere of supply of the ammunition and military material, Ukroboronprom enterprises, they work relatively well. They started increase the manufacture of 152 and 122 millimeter ammunition, and with the participation of the members of the committee, we have business with involvement of private businesses and Western suppliers, so they can enable us to manufacture this ammunition by Ukraine, which is quite necessary for Ukraine now. Lately, the defense enterprises improved their capabilities in repair of military material, because the material coming to us from abroad, it requires maintenance and repair, and our enterprises get profiled to that, and they do everything possible and even impossible to support and maintain the military material from the West, so to enable its efficient functioning in the front line. That's why the enterprises of Ukroboronprom, they supply the armed forces to the maximum extent possible, and international technical help, and on the Lend-Lease programs, we will receive more and sufficient amount of material and ammunition, which will enable us to establish at least parity in the front lines, so we don't find ourselves in the situation like we found ourselves in the beginning of the war, that one of our shells accounted for 20 shells from the enemy's side. This process improved recently, and thanks to the efforts of the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Strategic Defense, and other participants of the process, Russian information psychology operations are aimed at the topic of the supply of the weapons and ammunition from the West to us. How are we going to prove the transparency on our end? All those claims expressed through, so to say, communication means by the Russian Federation through agents of influence in the Western countries, they did not find any support, not in Finland, not in Eastern Europe, not other claims expressed in the public sphere that the material and ammunition coming to Ukraine goes to some black markets or gray zones. None of these pieces of information, thanks to the joint inspections by the representatives of the NATO countries and Ukraine, did not find any confirmation, and there are no problems in regard of military material and ammunition, that this material gets elsewhere other than to Ukraine. All of it is used in the front lines in Ukraine, and all those attempts of discreditation by Russian propaganda machine to discredit us, our political authorities and our military command, there are no confirmed facts of abuse or resell or this ammunition get into other markets. There are no such confirmations at all. Another thing is the law of putting the peacemakers in the border with Russia was the progress with this law. This is a political issue that's being solved in consultations with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Western partners. And as of today, to say that the peacekeepers will be located in the border with Belarus, there is no such resolution yet, but going a little bit ahead and forecasting some threats produced by the military experts recently as to the possible invasion from Belarus, our military command understands all the potential threats and real threats, and as of today, the troops of Belarusian and Russian, the groups of Belarusian and Russian troops in the border of Ukraine that can invade into Ukraine are non-existent at the moment. There are some signs of it, so the threat exists potentially. The possibility of it is low. We control them, and our borders with Republic of Belarus, they have quite a powerful line of defense. We have sufficient personnel and military formations there who provide necessary security in the borders. So in the short-term and mid-term perspective, I don't see any substantial threat as to the jeopardization of situation in the border with Belarus. Dear colleagues, your questions. Ukrinform, Lena Litvinenko, Mr. Fedir, can you please tell us that the lion's share of budget will be aimed at the defense next year? What will be the expenditure? Is it going to be armed forces or border guard or national guard? In what way the funds will be spent? And in this context, do you envisage any increase in the wages of servicemen? Thank you for the question. During the previous consideration of the state budget, we considered the funding of all the components of the defense sector in terms of both border service and National Guard and Ministry of Internal Affairs. We have to say that almost all the military formations that complete the task in protecting Ukrainian integrity increased in number. There is a mobilization not only to the armed forces of Ukraine, but also to the border service, border guard service. We increased the number of the armed forces and other components as well. So all these components of the defense sector have the increase of funding envisaged for them. So the increase of funding in all the direction, and to talk, however, we cannot talk now about the increase in the salaries of the servicemen, because we have to take into account the number of the servicemen who defend us currently, because it was 265,000 in the beginning of the war. So when we established the uplifts for the servicemen, but now the amount of funding for the servicemen, it should be obviously kept as of now, and we were aimed at that. So the battle uplifts and additional 30,000 for the servicemen, which were paid along with their salary, I think we will keep it at the level that was proposed today. And as of today, it's optimal in terms of the capabilities of the state and the requirements of the social protection of the servicemen. Talking about the defense budgets, we have two articles. It's the salaries to the servicemen and social guarantees related to injuries and perishment of servicemen for the families of the servicemen. And second is the military material and ammunition. Friends, do you have any more questions? Then I have another question. Recently, Iran recognized that they give Russia the loitering drones, and many experts and officials state that shortly Russians are about to get ballistic missiles. Russia is about to get the ballistic missiles from Iran. What are the further steps in causing pressure on Iran? I cannot say about any further steps regarding Iran, who is under the sanctions from all over the world, but there are still mechanisms of pressure remaining now that we see these terroristic attacks on the part of Russian Federation using the arms manufactured in the Republic of Iran. Ukraine maintains the trade contacts with Iran. Significant part of Iranian citizens are in the territory on Ukraine. So those are all the directions where we can increase the sanction pressure in. We can set embargo on the trade, including those products and export-import relations which are substantial for the Republic of Iran, which provide additional proceeds to the budget of Iran, and the fact of supply of these weapons by Iran to Russia, that these facts started to be discussed openly in all the platforms. Iran already changed their rhetorics, and their official statement was that some number of UAVs was delivered before the beginning of the war. However, and they're not being delivered at the moment. However, our central intelligence departments have different information. There is has different information which says that the number of drones is about to be increased, but further sanction pressure on Iran can stop this flow of arms to Russia. I want to thank you for joining our air. I will remind you, we will have Fedir Venislavskyi with us. Our team is preparing the schedule of events for tomorrow. Bear with us. Let's work on our victory together. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Thank you. Goodbye.